Lena stared out the window of the airplane, a kaleidoscope of emotions swirling within her. Excitement bubbled alongside trepidation, a potent cocktail of anticipation and fear. Her family was moving from their cozy home in Iowa to the bustling metropolis of Tokyo, Japan. It was her father's dream job, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity he couldn't refuse. But for 16-year-old Lena, it felt like her world had been turned upside down. Iowa was familiar, safe, a place where she knew everyone and everyone knew her. Tokyo was the unknown, a land of foreign languages and customs. She worried about making friends, about fitting in, about leaving behind everything she knew and loved.
As the plane touched down in Tokyo, the enormity of the change pressed upon her. The air seemed different here, thick with humidity and the cacophony of a city that never sleeps. Driving through the neon-lit streets, Lena felt a pang of longing for the wide-open spaces of her Midwestern home. Lena's new house was nestled in a quiet residential neighborhood, a stark contrast to the bustling city center. It was a traditional Japanese house with sliding paper doors and a small Zen garden in the back. Her room was sparsely furnished, with tatami mats instead of carpets and a low table for studying. It was simple, minimalist, and strangely calming, yet it felt foreign, a constant reminder that she was a long way from home.
That night, as she lay in her futon, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the city, Lena made a promise to herself. She would try her best to embrace this new adventure, to open her heart to the experiences that awaited her. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she was determined to make the most of it. After all, life was about stepping outside your comfort zone, about embracing the unknown. And that's exactly what she intended to do.
The first day of school was a blur of unfamiliar faces and rapid-fire Japanese conversations that Lena couldn't understand. The other students, clad in their crisp uniforms, seemed to glide through the hallways with an effortless grace that made Lena feel clumsy and out of place. They spoke in hushed tones, their words a melodic hum that was both intriguing and isolating.
Lena's grasp of the Japanese language was limited to a few basic phrases she had diligently memorized from a phrasebook. She found herself relying on gestures and smiles, hoping to convey her friendliness despite the language barrier. Her classmates, though polite, seemed hesitant to approach her, their curiosity masked by a cultural reserve that Lena found perplexing.
Lunchtime was a particularly daunting experience. The cacophony of the crowded cafeteria, the unfamiliar smells of the food, and the sight of everyone huddled in tight-knit groups, their laughter washing over her in waves of incomprehensible words, made Lena feel like an outsider. She ate her bento box lunch quickly, her appetite waning with each passing moment. As the days turned into weeks, Lena's initial excitement gave way to a pervasive sense of loneliness. She missed her friends, her old life, the ease of communication, the comfort of familiarity. She felt like a tiny boat adrift in a vast, uncharted ocean. The city, once a source of fascination, now seemed overwhelming, its vibrant energy a stark contrast to the quiet turmoil within her. One afternoon, feeling particularly lost and alone, Lena decided to explore her neighborhood. She wandered down narrow streets lined with small shops and bustling restaurants, the air thick with the aroma of spices and cooking oil. The afternoon sun cast long shadows, and the air was alive with the sounds of the city, the rumble of scooters, the chatter of vendors, the distant wail of a siren. Turning a corner, Lena stumbled upon a small, unassuming gate tucked between two buildings. It was painted a faded green, partially hidden by a tangle of ivy.
Curiosity piqued, Lena pushed the gate open and stepped inside. The noise of the city seemed to melt away, replaced by an almost tangible silence. Lena found herself in a small, enclosed garden, a tranquil oasis amidst the urban chaos. A gravel path meandered through carefully raked gravel, leading to a wooden bridge that arched over a pond filled with koi fish. The air was sweet with the scent of cherry blossoms, their delicate pink petals scattered across the ground like confetti.
At the far end of the garden, Lena noticed an elderly woman tending to some bonsai trees. She was dressed in a simple kimono, her silver hair pulled back in a neat bun. Her movements were slow and deliberate, her hands moving with a practiced grace as she pruned the miniature trees.
Hesitantly, Lena approached the woman. "Konnichiwa," she said, hoping her pronunciation was correct.
The woman looked up. her wrinkled face crinkling into a warm smile. "Konnichiwa," she replied, her voice surprisingly strong despite her age. "Welcome to my garden."
The elderly woman introduced herself as Mrs. Sato. She spoke limited English, but her kind eyes and gentle demeanor transcended any language barrier. Lena learned that Mrs. Sato had been tending to this garden for over 50 years. It had been her husband's passion project, a small piece of serenity he had created in the heart of the city. Over the next few weeks, Lena became a regular visitor to the garden. She would sit with Mrs. Sato for hours, watching her tend to her plants, listening to her stories about the garden's history. Mrs. Sato taught Lena about the art of Japanese gardening, explaining the significance of each element: the rocks, the water, the carefully placed plants.
One afternoon, as they sat sipping green tea in Mrs. Sato's small tea room overlooking the garden, Lena confessed her feelings of isolation and her struggles to adjust to her new life in Tokyo.
Mrs. Sato listened patiently, her dark eyes filled with understanding. "You must learn to see the beauty in imperfection," Mrs. Sato said, her voice soft but firm. "It is the philosophy of wabi-sabi. It is about accepting the transient nature of life, finding peace in the impermanence of all things."
Mrs. Sato explained that wabi-sabi was about appreciating the cracks and crevices in life, the imperfections that made things unique and beautiful. It was about finding beauty in the asymmetry, the roughness, the simplicity of nature. It was about embracing the present moment, letting go of the need for perfection and control.
Lena found herself drawn to the concept of wabi-sabi. It resonated with her own feelings of being out of place, of not quite fitting in. Perhaps, she thought, the key to finding her place in this new world was not about trying to blend in or conform, but about embracing her own uniqueness, her own imperfections.
As the weeks turned into months, Lena found herself slowly adapting to her new life in Tokyo.
I joined the school's calligraphy club, learning to form the elegant strokes of Japanese characters. I discovered a love for manga, spending hours browsing the shelves of local bookstores, my vocabulary expanding with each page I read.
She even tried her hand at making sushi, her initial clumsy attempts eliciting laughter from the kind elderly woman who owned the local sushi restaurant. With each new experience, Lena felt a sense of accomplishment, a growing confidence in her ability to navigate this unfamiliar world.
The city, once daunting and overwhelming, slowly began to reveal its hidden treasures: the quiet beauty of a traditional tea ceremony, the vibrant energy of a street festival, the simple joy of sharing a meal with new friends.
Lena's classmates, sensing her growing comfort level, began to include her in their activities. She found herself invited to karaoke nights, where she surprised everyone, including herself, with her rendition of a popular J-pop song. She joined her classmates on a weekend trip to the mountains, marveling at the beauty of the cherry blossom trees in full bloom.
Through these shared experiences, friendships blossomed. I found myself drawn to a group of girls who, like me, were passionate about art, music, and exploring the hidden gems of our city. They taught me about Japanese culture, patiently correcting my pronunciation, explaining the nuances of their language and customs.
One evening, as Lena sat with her parents at their dinner table sharing stories about their day, she realized something profound.
For the first time since moving to Tokyo, I felt a sense of belonging. It wasn't the same as the familiarity of my life in Iowa, but it was something different, something deeper. It was a sense of belonging that came from within, from accepting myself and my place in this new world.
Her parents, who had watched her journey with a mixture of pride and concern, beamed at her. They had witnessed her struggles, her moments of doubt and loneliness, but they had also seen her resilience, her determination to embrace the unknown, her openness to a culture so different from her own.
"You know, I think you're more Japanese than you realize."
I laughed, but his words struck a chord within me. I had learned so much about myself during my time in Tokyo. I had discovered a strength and resilience I never knew I possessed. I had learned to find beauty in imperfection, to embrace the transient nature of life, to appreciate the value of silence and contemplation.
Most importantly, she had learned that home wasn't just a place, it was a feeling. It was the feeling of being accepted for who you are, of being surrounded by people who cared about you, of having a place where you could be yourself, imperfections and all.
And in the heart of Tokyo, surrounded by the beauty of Mrs. Sato's garden and the warmth of my newfound friendships, I finally felt at home.
Spring arrived, painting Tokyo in vibrant hues of pink and white as the cherry blossoms burst into full bloom. The air was sweet with their fragrance, a gentle reminder of the ephemeral beauty of nature. In Mrs. Sato's garden, the cycle of life continued. New buds sprouted, leaves unfurled, and the koi fish glided gracefully through the clear water of the pond.
I was now a constant fixture in the garden, helping Mrs. Sato prepare for the annual spring tea ceremony. Together, we meticulously raked the gravel, pruned the bonsai trees, and arranged fresh flowers in delicate vases.
The garden, a testament to the philosophy of wabi-sabi, was a symphony of textures, colors, and scents, a testament to the beauty found in imperfection and transience. The tea ceremony itself was a study in mindfulness. Each movement, each gesture was imbued with meaning, a silent language that spoke of respect, harmony, and the appreciation of the present moment.
As I watched Mrs. Sato prepare the tea with practiced grace, I couldn't help but reflect on how much I had learned from this wise woman.
Mrs. Sato had taught Lena that true beauty lay not in striving for perfection, but in embracing the flaws and imperfections that made each moment, each experience, unique. She had shown her the importance of finding stillness in the midst of chaos, of appreciating the simple joys of life, of finding peace within herself. As Lena continued to explore her adopted city, she began to see the principles of wabi-sabi reflected in every aspect of Japanese culture. From the delicate brushstrokes of a calligraphy scroll to the simple elegance of a traditional teacup, from the weathered beauty of an ancient temple to the artfully arranged food on a plate, imperfection was celebrated, not hidden.
I saw it in the chipped teacups, used in the tea ceremony, each imperfection telling a story of time and use. I saw it in the cracks in the pavement, where tiny wildflowers stubbornly bloomed, defying the harshness of the urban environment. I saw it in the wrinkles on Mrs. Sato's face, each line a testament to a life well lived.
Lena realized that wabi-sabi was not just a philosophy, it was a way of life. It was about finding beauty in the everyday, in the transient nature of life, in the imperfections that made each moment, each experience precious. It was about letting go of the need for control, of accepting the ebb and flow of life, of finding peace in the present moment. Life in Tokyo continued to unfold for Lena like an exquisitely crafted tapestry, each thread a new experience, a new encounter, a new lesson learned. She joined a local pottery class, her fingers learning to mold the clay to find the balance between control and surrender to embrace the imperfections that made each piece unique.
I explored the bustling markets, my senses overwhelmed by the vibrant colors, the exotic aromas, the cacophony of vendors hawking their wares. I visited ancient temples, their serene beauty a stark contrast to the frenetic energy of the city, finding solace in their quiet courtyards, their ancient wisdom whispering through the centuries.
Through each experience, Lena's understanding of Japanese culture deepened. She learned to appreciate the subtle nuances of language, the unspoken rules of etiquette, the deep respect for tradition and history.
I discovered a love for Japanese cuisine, from the delicate flavors of sushi to the comforting warmth of ramen. But most importantly, I formed bonds of friendship that transcended language and cultural barriers. My classmates, initially hesitant, had embraced me with open arms, sharing their lives, their dreams, their culture with me. I had found my tribe, my people, in the most unexpected of places.
The news that her family would be moving back to the United States came sooner than Lena expected. Her father's job assignment in Tokyo was coming to an end, and it was time for their next adventure. While a part of Lena was excited to return home, to reunite with old friends and familiar comforts, a larger part of her felt a pang of sadness at the thought of leaving Tokyo.
Leaving Tokyo meant saying goodbye to Mrs. Sato and her tranquil garden, a sanctuary that had nurtured my soul during my time in Japan. It meant leaving behind the friends I had made, the experiences that had shaped me, the city that had become my second home.
As Lena said her farewells, she realized that her time in Tokyo had changed her in profound ways. She had arrived a shy, uncertain teenager, lost and alone in a sea of unfamiliar faces. She was leaving a confident young woman, her heart overflowing with gratitude for the experiences that had shaped her, the people who had touched her life.
Remember, Lena, Mrs. Sato said, her voice hoarse but strong. Wabi-sabi is not just about accepting imperfection, it's about finding beauty in it. Carry that lesson with you always.
Mrs. Sato, her eyes twinkling with wisdom, gifted Lena with a small bonsai tree, a symbol of the lessons she had learned in the garden. The flight back to Iowa was bittersweet. As Lena looked out the airplane window at the receding cityscape of Tokyo, she knew that a part of her would always remain in that vibrant, chaotic, and utterly captivating city. She carried with her a suitcase full of memories, a heart overflowing with gratitude, and a newfound appreciation for the beauty of imperfection.
Upon returning to Iowa, I found that I saw my hometown with new eyes. The familiar landscape seemed different, imbued with a new significance. I approached old friendships with a newfound appreciation for the comfort and familiarity they provided.
Lena planted the bonsai tree that Mrs. Sato had gifted her in her backyard, a constant reminder of the lessons she had learned in Tokyo. She tended to it with care, nurturing its growth, appreciating its delicate beauty, its resilience in the face of change.
My journey of acceptance, however, extended far beyond my time in Tokyo. The seeds of acceptance, sown in the fertile ground of Mrs. Sato's garden, continued to blossom within me. I carried the lessons of wabi-sabi with me, finding beauty in the imperfections of everyday life, embracing the transient nature of all things, and approaching each new experience with an open heart and a willingness to learn.
For Lena, Tokyo had been more than just a temporary home. It had been a transformative experience, a journey of self-discovery, a testament to the power of human connection, and a reminder that true beauty lies not in perfection, but in the embrace of imperfection. It was a journey that had left an indelible mark on her soul, shaping the person she was becoming and the person she would continue to be.